Hello, welcome to Rollin With My Homies. I'm here with my very special guest today, Kristina Rhoades. Kristina is a life coach, writer, artist, and a mama, and she's also my friend for what?
Over 10 years, a long time.
10 years. Over 10
I don't know, yeah.
We met in Florida, right? We were both correspondents for this thing. We were covering the X Games. Is that what they were called?
Extremity Games?
Extremity Games.
Yeah.
They were like, sort of, how would you describe it?
Kind of like the extreme sports, kind of X Games type game for adapted athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was epic, man. We were, watching people with double amputations, like, wakeboarding and, rock climbing and cycling. It was so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And we were both covering the event. I came in from New Jersey. You came in from Georgia at the time. Right?
Yeah.
And it was so fun. And we met, and then we've stayed in touch ever since.
Yeah.
And you were Kristina Shepard at the time.
It was.
And now you're Kristina Rhoades, married with child.
And just celebrated my 12th anniversary, so that kind of puts a little timestamp on it, I guess. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, well, happy anniversary.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm so happy to have you here as my guest because, we have a lot in common, right? I feel like we have a lot in common, which isn't true of all wheelchair users, but you and I do. First of all, you want to talk a little bit about, because you were injured early in life, right? You were injured at how old?
At 10 months old. Yep.
So early, but you weren't born.
Right. So it was a spinal cord injury. Yep. So I got hurt at 10 months old. It result of domestic violence. I won't go into it any more than that because, nobody needs another sad story in their life. But yeah, so as long as I can remember, a T5 spinal cord injury. So about halfway up my back, full paraplegic from there down. So I've been using a manual wheelchair as long as I, needed a way to get around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, I was a little girl too. And it doesn't make all the difference in the world, but there is sort of something to that, right? Because you didn't, like me, you didn't experience driving. You didn't have a job. You didn't have to relearn a lot of stuff.
Right. And there's a part of, I think, growing up in a wheelchair in school, with your peers in elementary school and middle school. So it's definitely a different dynamic than getting injured as an adult, I think.
Yeah. And so I know right before we got on, you were talking about how there's the difference between you growing up and your daughter growing up in television and media when it comes to disabilities. Do you want to talk about that? Because that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it really is to me too. My family is a film family, so my grandpa was a director in Hollywood, and a lot of my, aunts and uncles and family members have continued to work in film through the years. So, I have a good grasp on, how they have used actors and things over the years. If a disability was ever even portrayed in film, they would usually kind of gloss over it or use somebody that wasn't actually, had a disability themselves. So, fast forward to today, again, I was hurt in 1984. Fast forward to today, my daughter's 8 years old. And, I don't have an exact percentage, but I bet 80% of the shows she watches, cartoons and, non-animation, that actually portrays somebody with a disability, and a very obvious disability. And often there's a wheelchair user in her shows. And, us being kind of savvy and being able to identify if somebody really is a wheelchair user, or if it's an actor, sitting in a chair. I mean, these are real kids with disabilities that are in all her shows. And I just it makes my heart so full, and she loves it. She'll scream Mom, there's somebody in a wheelchair in my show. And it makes her proud, because it represents her mama. And I just, I know you and, a lot of other people are working really hard to make it mainstream in Hollywood and, with, more what adults watch, but I think they're doing a really good job creating that diversity on screen for kids these days, in their programming. So that's the place to start. Yeah.
It's the place to start because I didn't see really anybody like me growing up. Unless it was a very special episode and always revolved around, the shocking reveal that the character that Zach wants to date is in a wheelchair. Commercial, you know, and I have to feel like, great, am I shocking? You know? So
Right.
I love that they're starting with kids. Oh, that's so good to hear. And I love how excited Cameron gets. Cameron is your daughter.
Yes, ma'am.
Right? Okay. And so this is like really cool to me because I just froze my eggs and I'm getting ready for that next step in life. You know, I've done the thing where I put my career first, and career is still important to me, but now I feel like I want to fold in a little bit of, listen, my clock, I was never the type of person that saw a baby or a child and I was like, oh, I want that. Dogs always, kids nah, but it's this biological clock theory is true because now it's changing. The older I'm getting, the more I see babies and I'm like, can I hold it? You know what I mean? It's like starting to happen. So I'm excited. So I don't know. I'm thinking about, because I just said I froze my eggs. I'm thinking maybe I might go through a surrogate just because of my own personal challenges or whatever. But you actually got pregnant and gave birth.
Yep. And I got hurt in 1984, and so over the years, seeing doctors, obviously what they understand about spinal cord injuries has changed a lot, since then. And so a lot of my life, especially as a kid, I would ask doctors, can I have kids? And they would say, we're not sure. We don't see any reason why not, and so they never really were like, yes, you can, and so I just always knew that, okay, well, that seems a good enough answer to me, I'm going to try. And I knew I always wanted to be a mom. And so after my husband and I got married, we were having a little bit of trouble. And so I just really got into natural health and a year later, was pregnant and had a great pregnancy. I mean, I saw a high risk doctor just because, because I can't feel anything that's going on. My feeling line, my sensation stops about my sternum. So I can't feel my entire pregnant belly, or anything, or cramps or anything like that. So I saw a high risk doctor once or twice and he said, gosh, you're healthier than 90% of the high risk patients I have here that come in here walking, so he's like, it's kind of a waste of my time, go home. And if something happens, come back and see me. And I worked my whole pregnancy and didn't even have an accessible vehicle back then, girl. I just was like climbing in and out of a SUV, and breaking down my wheelchair and lifting it over my pregnant belly. And so it was awesome. And she ended up being about a month early and no complications and totally healthy. And obviously that experience is different for everybody, but I was really lucky.
Yeah, you were. Do you feel like it was an advantage or a disadvantage that you couldn't feel stuff?
I would say more of a disadvantage just because of the worry, like you're growing this human. And I'm sure, I ended up having a C-section, so I didn't have to do the labor pains, but I'm sure that I missed out on a lot of cramp pains and things, which was, a benefit. But just knowing that there's this little person growing inside and you can't feel if something's wrong, or maybe my body would have told me if something was wrong, but just that worry that like, what if there's a pain that I can't feel, or what if something's happening? And even when I started getting contractions, I couldn't like physically feel the contractions. I would feel like a little weird, like my heart might race a little bit, or I'd feel a little flushed, and then I'd have to physically touch my belly and it would be hard like a basketball, like I could knock on it and I'd be like, oh, I guess that's a contraction, so it definitely, there was a little bit of mystery in there that was like, I'd kind of like to know exactly what's happening right now, but
right. But
sure.
That's something we have to do, right? We have to listen to our bodies in sort of a different way. Do you ever get autonomic dysreflexia?
Yes.
Yeah. So, right, autonomic dysreflexia is something that happens to us. The way I always describe it, let me know if this is how you describe it, is like if something hurts or is affected below the level of feeling, your body still wants to give you the message that something's going on. So it sends the pain or it sends the sensation somewhere else. Like I fractured my femur and I've had, migraines, blurry vision, and then like you said, flushed face. And I realized, oh, something's wrong. And then that's where you have to start sort of investigating. Do you?
Yep. I would say that's a perfect description. And sometimes it could be something as, as simple as like one of your toes, is not straight in your shoe, or it could be that you need to use the restroom, or it could be like you have a broken femur, so sometimes it's like a mystery, like, okay, I hear
What
you.
you just have a headache?
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah.
is crazy because
So,
you get like if I get migraine, I have to be like, okay, let me just check everything, and then if everything's okay, then I can go like lay down and turn off the lights and deal with
yeah,
the migraine of it
just
all.
a normal headache. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god. Okay, so you had a great pregnancy. That's so awesome. I mean, when you how did you find out you were pregnant? You guys were trying and you peed on a
Yeah,
stick or
we were
like
trying. So yeah, I did a pregnancy test, and yeah, it was positive, and that was like one of the most earth-shattering moments. I swear, when it like positive, like wait, what? I'm doing this, So yeah, that was pretty amazing, and yeah, I had a great pregnancy. You and I have talked a little bit about this before, but where I really had to start being creative is after I had her. Having limited mobility can definitely be a challenge, especially with a newborn. Once they get mobile, gosh, she helps me. When she was a year and a half, she was like standing on the counters putting my dishes away that I've never been able to reach. So it's like,
a year and a half?
yeah, yeah. So as soon as she could walk and understand me, like, man, she's a helper. But when she wasn't mobile, that was kind of a challenge to do things where I'm holding her with the two arms that I have. So aside from that, like doing anything is pretty challenging and can't like pace around the house, like holding her, like that's how I wheel. So little elbow action, helped a little bit. And I would use scarves to kind of tie her into my lap so she wouldn't fall out and we could roll around, even before she could sit up on her own. Yeah.
Like that thing people do when they're walking with the baby, they sort of like
Yeah.
kangaroo the baby to themselves.
Yep.
And that's what you did. And then this way you had your hands.
Yep. So it'd be like a little seat belt. So she was safe and I could actually wheel and, get stuff ready for her. But yeah.
And then I called you a few months ago when I froze my eggs to ask you tips on stuff like this. Cause I don't know. And no one else is really talking about it. Like you said, I've never seen I've never seen a mother with a child who's in a wheelchair on TV. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I haven't. Or just say like out and about in the world. Have you ever like ran across a mom with a kid, or a baby out in the world? It doesn't happen. Maybe at Abilities Expo, but not just everyday life. It's not a common thing.
So you told me about your husband made you a special crib, like an accessible crib.
Yeah.
Tell everyone about that because it's so cool.
So I'm, lucky to have a husband that's super handy and
you are. I'm looking for
fixed anything, and so and he's known me. My husband and I have known each other since elementary school, so since we were 10. So he knows better than anybody in the world what my abilities are, what I'm capable of. So he was like in the best position to build this thing that worked for me. So a lot of cribs. The challenge is that you got to be tall enough to reach over the side. And even if they drop down, it's still probably going to be armpit level for us, if not higher.
Right.
And so that's just, something we can't do. I don't have the best balance. I don't, I'm paralyzed from my sternum down. So I don't have the core muscles that make me like, I couldn't lift myself up without my arms. I don't have the stomach muscles to like do a sit up or lift, sit up from laying down. And so that would be a challenge for us. So he built this crib that the bottom of it was about an inch above my knees. So I could actually roll under it and get flush up against it, where it's against me. And then instead of a drop down, he made like barn doors. So it would latch and I could open the two doors and be right there, and stand her up right in front of me. And it was super, super easy to use. And so awesome. And, he built it himself, so wanted to make sure his baby would never escape. So this thing, like a kid could probably be like 3 and not get out of that thing,
Yeah.
But it was awesome. And I think not everybody will have the husband or have somebody that could build something like that, or have have these things accessible at their fingertips. And so I think the most important thing is for us to tap into the skills that we've had to just build, to live, to survive, to have careers, to go to the grocery store. Like, we are people in wheelchairs, people like me and you have learned to be natural problem solvers. We have to figure out yeah, how to reach the flavor of crackers we want from the top shelf, or, you know, at the grocery store, or, you know, navigate our house, or, you know, not all of us have money to have a fully accessible house. Most of us have houses that we can pretty much get around, but that doesn't mean the stove is accessible, or the freezer, or the washer and dryer, or any of that stuff. So
Right.
most of us have to figure out how to live every day. And so you just got to do the same thing with a baby, like use scarves, use, you know, put them in overalls so you can just with one hand pick their little self off the ground, you know. Like, yeah, we got to tap into those skills, you know, even if it's about being a parent and raising a kid. Yeah.
Tell everybody about how Cameron was like way ahead of other kids her age when it came to strapping herself into the car seat.
Yeah. So yeah, she could hook herself in earlier than a lot of kids, just because she saw that it was a challenge for me, like bending down and, you know, trying to do it. She could even stand up at 4 months old, 3.5, 4 months old, could stand up and like only holding on to her little hands, holding onto my fingers, and could stand up, and her legs would be shaky, and the doctors would just be baffled because it was so young. But I would need her to do that to get out of, you know, at that time we weren't using a crib, we were using, it's called a little like side sleeper. It's just right next to your bed. And even that, like to get her out, I'd kind of have to stand her up and balance her on the side so I could be positioned, you know, kind of squarely in my chair. I couldn't sit up if she was in my arms. So I had to be balanced and, you know, centered in my chair. So I have to have her like leaning on the side and lift her out from there so she could stand up like way earlier than most babies, because I needed her to get her out. And how babies get that, and the intuition, and how we connect as parents and figure each other out, I don't know, but it's really incredible.
Yeah, it's like when they have to, when somebody has to do something, they learn how to do it. I don't care if
Yeah.
they're 4 months old, or, you know, whatever, or 40 years old, or 90
Right.
years old. It's like once you get to that point where you can no longer do something, or you can't do something, you adapt. That's what humans do. And honestly, even dogs, because my dogs are
Yes.
always know tricks that nobody else's dogs know, just because they've been around me for so long. Like they can jump up on my lap in a way that other dogs can't. Or every dog I've ever had knows the command, excuse me. Because if I'm coming through and I go, excuse me, they get the hell out of my way.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. Yep.
Yes. So I think that's really cool, and probably something people don't know. You know what I'm curious about? How did people react out in the wild seeing a pregnant woman in a wheelchair?
Girl, that was the big one. You know, I mean, growing up like this, you know that people say weird stuff to us, you know, like all the time, like just shopping in the grocery store, or, you know, I've had people while I'm shopping, like come and just come up behind me and lay their hands on me and pray to God I will be saved, you know. So it's like always crazy stuff. But when I was pregnant, woo, like it was like double time, man. You know, these people were like, oh my gosh, like I need to go and figure this out. And so people would walk up and like the words would come out before they could like, you know, filter themselves, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, how did that, and I'm like, I see where you're going with this, buddy. You know, it's like, I bet if you think long enough, you can figure out how it happened, you know, just like everybody else. So
right. You're like, well, should I be your parents? Because I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Like, did they have sex ed, you know, at the school you went to? Because same process, you know.
Right.
So that was definitely interesting. People were just very surprised at, you know, at why and how that was possible. I even went to one doctor one time, and I forget what it was for. I needed some sort of prescription, you know, or no, I didn't take any prescription. I don't know why I had to go while I was pregnant to a doctor that I didn't see very much, a family practice doctor. And I came in and they kind of giggled at me and said, oh, you're so pregnant that you had to rent a wheelchair. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm in a wheelchair.
Let's just remind everybody listening that was at a doctor's office.
A doctor said it. Yes.
See, this is where I know. Believe me, it's like when I go to the ER, when I fracture my femur and I go to the ER and they go, what is the level of pain? And I say, well, I don't have any feeling there. And then the doctor writes down 0. And I go, no. Don't write down 0, because someone's going to look at this chart now and go, oh, great, she's not in any pain. You have to be a little more specific.
Right.
Hello, you're a doctor. Hello.
Too many things at once. Can't comprehend. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God. It's so true. It's so true. Wow. So that's so interesting to me. What about, other things people have said to you, crazy things, because you've gone through elementary school, middle school, you went through the whole thing, right? What do you feel like? For me, I always feel like in elementary school, I was like a celebrity, and then like everyone thought it was so cool. And then in middle school, people were like, oh wait, being different is actually not cool. So then I felt like a weirdo for like from 7th to 12th, give or take. And then when I went off to college, my peers were adults and things started to sort of normalize.
Yeah.
What was your experience?
I totally can see that. I mean, I think as weird as kids can be, kids are weird to everybody for whatever their differences, So I'm like, kids would tease me and say like, oh, you can't walk. And I'm like, good one, guys, like, whoa. But I think it's more as an adult that is what shocked me is what other adults say. Kids are kids, man. They're like trying to work it all out in their own dang head,
Right.
But like adults that are like a functioning adult and walk up and say something in the grocery store, it's just like, whoa, how do you get through life? And one interesting one, I was in New York City and we were in Battery Park and there was this gentleman sitting there with a guitar, this homeless gentleman, with his guitar case out, getting money and playing his little guitar. And I'm a sucker for live music, for any music in the universe, really. So I'm all about, if I see anybody playing anywhere, I'm gonna give them my love and attention and hear what they have to give, So my family's walking and they keep going and I like stop and sit with this homeless man and let him play the guitar for a little while, throw a couple dollars in, his guitar case. And he says, when he's done, he says, ma'am, may I ask you a personal question? And I'm like, hey, here we go, yes. And he's just like, obviously you haven't found God. And I'm like, oh, that's not usually what people lead with. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? And he said, well, you're in a wheelchair. So obviously if you loved God, like you should, or like he deserves, you would be walking, he would save you. And I'm like looking at this man who has like holy clothes and he's homeless and he's sitting in the park and, obviously hasn't taken a shower in like, a year. And I'm like, sir, I'm doing pretty well, like I can't walk. And that's pretty much the worst thing I've got going for me,
Right.
I have a great life. And that was my husband, right there. And, I'm like on vacation in New York City for the Miss Wheelchair America pageant, it's why I was there. So it was I find it so interesting that just a wheelchair makes people think we're so worse off and that our life is so miserable, just that little detail, and it's just, It was an interesting thing to see his situation compared to mine. And I'm like, you think my life sucks. And like, dude, have you found the Lord? Because I think it might help you out a little bit too,
Right. That reminds me, I was in New York City one time myself and I was just strolling down the street and I stopped and I saw this man who had no clothes on, only like tiny little underwear. And he was like washing his laundry, washing clothes and like just on the street. And I'm like looking and I look around to see if anyone else noticed it. And I saw a whole group of people staring at me. I'm like, no.
Like, wait.
This is what's also, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I shouldn't, there's no reason I should be staring at him. I'll give you that. I was young, no judgment, but come on.
Yeah, that you're more interesting or, out of the ordinary than that is like, whoa. But what about that time about 10 or 15 of us all dumped out of limos in wheelchairs in Times Square?
That was so
like
funny.
A few people looked at that, right?
Yes, that was so funny.
We had like tourists like
Yes, yes. One time we were doing this thing, I think it was for the Abilities Expo, right?
Mhm.
Which is like and you know how there's hair expos, there's different expos. This was for people with all different disabilities and different car companies and vacation companies and products, whatever. So we were there all for that. And we went to, we were going to listen to some jazz music. And there was like 10 of us in wheelchairs in this same limo. Why did we take a limo? How did we get a limo?
We were awesome. I don't know.
Okay. And then when we got there, we each had to get transfer out of the limo into our respective wheelchairs. And it was, I get people, I mean, we must have looked like a clown car.
Yeah, if you remember, I think 1 or 2 SUVs followed us with the wheelchairs.
Yeah, that's right.
We couldn't fit the wheelchairs in the limo, you know, so all of us like jumped out and crawled into the limo, you know, and then our follow cars like brought the wheelchairs, and they said it was like Tetris, you know, like back there. No, good times.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
I mean, if they're gonna stare, I mean, gotta give them a reason to once in a while.
Yeah. That reminds me, you know, it's like sometimes I think being in a wheelchair works in your favor and sometimes it works against you, right? Do you have any stories of either times?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Obviously, accessibility, it's when it works against you. There are still many places, even though the ADA is, you know, we're getting ready to celebrate 30 years and it has changed so much and helped so much. But it doesn't mean that everywhere is accessible. And I think that's a big misconception. There's plenty of loopholes. There's plenty of exemptions. There's plenty of just people that don't follow the law and have never been fined, so they could give a crap. You know, I mean,
that's what I always say. People always, if I tell them, oh, this place is not accessible, I can't go there, they go, isn't that illegal? I'm like, yeah, isn't cocaine illegal? Plenty of people are doing that, you know? What are you gonna do? What can I do?
And there's some people that do spend an entire lifetime going after every place that's
right,
not accessible, but that's not how I want to spend my time.
What's
but
a full-time job?
Yeah. And so, yeah, that going to New York, speaking of New York, catching a taxi in a wheelchair is,
oh yeah, right, good luck.
You know, crazy. Like my bosses, I worked with accessible vehicles for a long, long time and sold taxis to New York and lots of other cities around the country that were accessible. But at a time where there was like 14,000 accessible taxis in New York City, there was like 150 of them that were wheelchair accessible. So, you know, it's a needle in a haystack, and who knows how many of those were even in service or broken down or what.
Right, and it's not like you can't get, you said yourself, your car was not some sort of accessible car for a while there when you were pregnant. It's like you can get into, you know, a mother with a stroller is just as much as a person with a wheelchair, right? It's like, just stop the damn cab and I'll give you 2 instructions of what to do, and it's easy.
And money.
Do it, I'll do it myself.
And I will pay you.
And we tip well. I tip when someone has a good attitude. I always tip them well because I want them to be like, the next time they see a person in a wheelchair, I want them to be like, you know, this is gonna be a good tip. And then, sorry if the next person doesn't tip you well, that's not my responsibility.
So I'd be there, like literally coming from the taxi commission in New York City or City Hall, you know, advocating for taxis with my bosses, you know, these like millionaires that are, you know, own the company, and they would say, go hide. So they could down.
Same thing I do.
Yeah.
Oh, I do the same thing, hide. And I would, a lot of times I was in the city alone, so I'd have to ask a stranger, I know this is weird, but do you mind just hailing me a cab? And then you can just walk on off when they stop.
Yeah. And so then they'd like start putting their stuff in, and then come on. And then the guy, sometimes they'd still try to go, no. You know, and it's like, too late. I'm getting in and you're not stopping me. You know, you just have to move fast. Yeah.
I had an Uber driver a few years ago stop and then leave with my leftovers in their car before I could even get in. My leftovers, now it's personal. You don't mess with Italian girls' food.
Right?
Oh my
totally,
God.
Totally.
Yeah. Because Ubers and Lyfts, I have to say, I'm facing the same thing. You know, I'm scared to call one because of how many times I've been discriminated against by them. How many times they'll stop and say, "Oh, sorry, I just can't." And again, my friend has a smart car, and I've gotten into her car with my wheelchair.
Yeah.
2 of my friends, actually, I can get in their tiny little cars with my wheelchair. So you cannot tell me, like anyone listening who's going, well, maybe you can. No, not well, maybe you can't. And by the way, if you're an Uber or Lyft driver, you should have an open trunk, because you might be picking up someone from the airport, you might be picking up someone who has like shopping bags, or like I said, again, a stroller, right?
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
Ugh, I'm so passionate about that. I get so mad. Well, okay, well, when's the time that it's worked in your favor? Because I know you've cut a few lines.
Yes. So yeah, it's important to, recognize that too. So like cutting in line is amazing. I think the state of, it may not be the state of Nevada, but the city of Las Vegas like has a law. Like if you're a person in a wheelchair, you go to the front of the line, man. Like that is like yeah. And so that is awesome, totally epic. It's like for all the time we waste like taking our wheelchairs apart and getting into stuff, like we should get to save a little time cutting in line once in a while. I mean, it's like it's totally
Anybody
fair.
who's mad about that, I'm always like, would you like to, and I'll stand in that line. I would love to be able to stand in that line, but I can't. But actually, secretly, I'd rather not stand in the line. I'd rather cut in the line.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but if you're super mad about one person, like cutting in front of you, like then just tough. So yeah, it's nice to, get on the airplane first and like have your space and, little things like that where, I know usually it's just to get us out of the way, but it's, kind of nice to have that little like extra time and things like that.
You're having to get off the airplane last.
Yeah. And what I hate more is when everybody gets off and the flight attendants come up to me and say, ma'am, anything you need, would you please exit the plane? And I'm like, yeah, I need an aisle chair so I can get off. And they're like, oh,
For anybody who doesn't know what an aisle chair is, let me just remind you of Silence of the Lambs when he's being transported on that thing, and they strap you into this little teeny chair, right? And I'm always like, oh, I don't need the seatbelts, and they're like, it's the law, we have to, and they strap me in like a crate, like just strap me in.
Like so I can't move. Like you're gonna drive a race car. Like,
yes, yeah. And then they move me through the aisles to the chair, and everyone looks up from their Sudoku puzzle or whatever they're doing, because then I'm temporary in flight entertainment for the moment. And that's what you have to, if you have to go to the bathroom on the plane, which please, that's a whole nother friggin' thing. Those bathrooms are so small. I mean, and then by the way, next time you're on an airplane, if you can walk, just for fun, try to pull your pants up without standing up in there. It's not easy. You got to shimmy.
Yeah. Totally.
And the plane is like curved, right? So your head is like, right?
Yeah. And then when you're done, you have to be like, ready for can somebody come in? I'm ready to come out now. Yeah.
Yes. And you're an adult and you're just like, can somebody help me? I'm in here. Oh my God, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, what a life. What about, like, what's something that you, like, I loved how you were talking earlier about using scarves to keep the baby, on your lap. What are some other things that are cool things that you've adapted, or things that you've been like, I have a good idea?
Like I said, the clothing is really important when they're really little and on the ground, because it's important for them to like get down on their belly and have their tummy time and roll around, and it's how they build all those muscles. And you can do it a little bit in a bed, but at some point that becomes dangerous because they're moving around a lot, and so they need to be on the ground, and it's super important. And so, like I said, overalls, or like really like hardy onesies, good material, where I could literally hold on to my wheel with one hand and reach down with the other hand and like grab her in the middle of the back, and like with one hand like bring her into my lap, off the ground.
I'm a bear or something.
Yeah, like they pick up their little cubs with, on the back of their neck, and yeah. And so that was the best thing for me, because again, with both hands, I can't bend over and pick her up because I couldn't sit back up. So that was a big thing, what she wore when she was little. And different parents struggle. I know a lot of people really worry about when they can walk and they are going to run away, or, run upstairs, or you're not going to be able to get to them in public. And I don't know if I was lucky, or if it's just how there was no negotiating for me in public. So there was like a few times where she did run away from me. Like we left our full shopping cart, left the store, her in my lap, like not happy, and wheeled my happy butt out to the van, with her like having a tantrum, because I knew there could not be any we don't do bedtimes. I'm a very like loose mom, but I knew there in public, there could not be any room for argument or trying to test me to see what I would do, because it was safety at that point. Like if she ran into a street off a curb, I couldn't, or if she, so in public, I needed to know that no matter what, if I said stop or come back, that she would never question that. So, like there's a few times we had to make a little bit of a scene and leave, and oh gosh, yeah, the looks about that, people are like, do you need help? Help, lady. No, I'm like, I've got this.
Speaking of safety, remember the time you told me you fell while you were holding her?
Yeah.
Talk about that's so amazing.
So that was like right at the beginning. I think she was, maybe 15 months old, like just had been walking for a little bit, just learning how to run. And the front door was open and she ran off the front door at our house. And we were in a really safe place. We were at the end of a not busy cul-de-sac. So she wasn't in like any immediate danger, but it was just one of those moments that I had to like be clear, like that can't happen, and so I like wheeled after her outside, and she was still pretty young then where I couldn't even, like reason with her as much, so I grabbed her in her little overalls and put her into my lap and was holding her. And then kids do this back arch thing where they like arch their back and like go completely stiff, and it is so hard. And so she did that in my lap, and I could feel that she was falling, and I got both hands on her and can't catch myself. And so the only thing I could think to do in that moment was to fall with her, because we were on cement and my hand was on the back of her head. So I was like, I'm gonna fall with her and hopefully like be able to not let her head get hit. And so I fell on the ground with her and she was fine. And I tell you what,
wow.
Yeah. So she like stood up and was just like, whoa, like, love you, mama, like hugging me, like, oh man, like
I had to like that.
Huh? Nah.
Does she remember that? She's home, right? Can we talk to her?
Hey, Cameron. Yeah, it's amazing. They don't know anything different. Want to come say hi to your bud?
Yeah. She's so cute.
Yeah.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
We were just talking to your mom about some, just some cool stuff about being a mom in a wheelchair. How do you feel about that? Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, I think I just like it. It's, I like to just help, and, it's really fun. I get to spend a bunch of time with her and, just hang out, and it's really fun.
Yeah. She told me that you're very helpful, that you'll reach things that are high for her.
Yeah.
Or if I'm not in my chair, she'll go grab stuff for me so I don't have to get in my chair. It's so awesome. But it's a weird thing now. I don't know if she'll have any feedback on this, but a couple times, Santina, this will drive you crazy. Kids obviously ask Cameron, like, what's wrong with your mom? Or, why is she in a chair? And that's totally normal. That's what kids are curious. And but a few times adults have come up to Cameron, like at a park, and asked her, like pointed at me and they're like, what's wrong with your mom? And at that point, she does not answer. She comes over to me and says, that guy wants to know what's wrong with you. And I'm like, you tell that man he can come over and ask mommy, himself if he wants to. No, but I'm like, the nerve to be too wimpy to come ask me and to ask my kid. Ooh, some people, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What do you say when kids ask you? Do you have an answer when your friends ask you?
Well, I just, I go up to my mom and I just say like, I'm like, she wants to know like how you got her and like why you're in a wheelchair, and
kind of depending on their age, I can tell them what's best for them to know right then.
Yeah. And
what else do you do when they're kind of asking about my wheelchair to make it cool?
I tell her to pop a wheelie.
Oh, wow, nice. Party trick.
I've got the cool, you know, lights too. So if kids are just kind of hanging on the subject a little bit, she'll just be like, Mom, pop a wheelie. Or, you know, like, show them your lights. And then immediately the ice is broken and the kids are just like, cool. So it's a little trick she does, yeah.
Before we were talking about there's some characters on some of your shows that you watch, Cameron, that are in wheelchairs and stuff.
Mhm.
Can you give us any examples?
Like what show or
Yeah, on what shows?
like
What about the Descendants movies?
oh yeah
Disney's Descendants?
It's like so they're like the daughters and sons of some of the evil villains from Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wheelchair girl, and there's three movies in Descendants, and the girl in the wheelchair is in every one. She has different hairstyles, different lengths. Sometimes it's dyed. She has amazing, cool outfits. And
Nice. Is she the daughter of one of the villains?
no, she's there's also like the daughters and sons of princesses and like kings and queens and stuff. And she's one of them.
Awesome. Do you remember her name?
They didn't say her name. She's not one of the main characters, but she's always in the movies. There's like sometimes there's like dances and songs and stuff, and she's normally in one of those scenes. Like you can see her dancing.
That's so cool. How do you feel when you see that?
I just smile and I get proud because like I love seeing people in wheelchairs and people with disabilities in shows because it just shows that like shows different kinds of people in the world, and we're all just people, and we're not really like different. We're just people.
Amen, sister. That's so cool. You remember so the last time that I got to spend some time with Kristina and Cameron is when they were coming out to California for an Abilities Expo, right? And you guys stayed with me, remember?
Oh yeah.
It was so fun, right?
Yeah, that was amazing.
It's cool because you wanted to find a place to stay that's accessible, which is kind of hard to find sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So it was perfect because you could come stay at my apartment. And I still have your stuffed animal that you left right here. I'm taking good care of her or him. What's its name?
Snowflower.
Snowflower. Oh, that's beautiful. And Snowflower
still talks about Lucci all the time too.
Oh, great. Lucci's my dog. Luciano, you want to say hi to Cameron? Look.
Oh, there he is.
Lucci, say hi.
Hi, bud.
Ah! Yeah, so next time you guys are in LA, you'll all have to come here and be reunited with Luciano and Snowflower.
Yes.
And me, of course.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for jumping in, Cameron. I love hearing from you. Do you have anything else you want anybody watching or listening to know about your mom?
Well, no.
I think you covered it.
Yeah.
Good job. And you look adorable as always. Cameron is a style icon. And you're in a music video, right?
Yeah.
3, 4,
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is one to watch, people. Thanks, Cameron. Talk to you soon. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
So I love her. She's so cute and she's so smart, and it's so clear, right, that she's just, I don't know, just gets it, right?
And to her, I think the most awesome thing is she's one of the only people besides us that actually, you know, have the disability. One of the only people I know that doesn't carry any sort of baggage about disabilities or diversity. Like, she's proud and celebrates it and thinks it's so magnificent when people are different. And, you know, and I just wish the world could feel that and be able to appreciate it like her instead of see it as something that's so broken and wrong. I just, she has no sadness about me being in a wheelchair. And some people, no matter how much they love me, still inside, but I wish you were whole, or I wish and so I just, it fills my heart with so much joy that she really has no baggage about it, that she thinks I am perfect and everybody else with a disability is just dang perfect how they are.
Unless they were jerks.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah, but if you're a jerk, then you suck. Yeah. No matter if you're in a wheelchair or not.
Right. So, and now you're married. How was the wedding? Did you have to do anything special for that? Did you do anything creative, or like first dance wise, or coming down the aisle wise? I always wonder.
Oh, Jacob.
Resident single over here.
Jacob's pretty, strong. So he definitely showed off his muscles. And after we kissed, he carried me out of my chair up this flight of stairs that was like, I don't know, a lot.
Really?
That was, I think, the most special thing. The first dance, I was in my chair.
That carry you over the threshold to shame.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think anything really different. We just, looked for a venue that was open and accessible. And so sometimes it might take a little bit more research, to find something that you envision for your wedding, that also you can get to all the places you need to get, Yeah.
What about your dress? Anything? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't have a lot of tulle going on.
No, it was a pretty simple dress. And I found it in a magazine, and first dress shop I went, I found it and it was available and it was $300. I was like, woohoo! Yeah. So yeah, most of that.
Your chair or anything like that? Nah.
Anything different to my chair?
Like decorate the chair.
I actually did. Colors made me a white backrest, so it kind of blended in with my dress, and some white stuff, and but yeah. Besides that, my dress, I didn't have to have it probably any more altered than everybody has to, just to tuck it in here and there, and yeah.
And so, okay, when I met you, you were living in Georgia, but you've lived in a few different places, right?
I was born in California, but we were in Georgia for 11 years. And then New Mexico is where we're at now, and we've been here for 3 years. Yeah.
And so what are you doing there? What brought you to New Mexico?
A lot of things. We homeschool, and our daughter, when we moved here, sorry, my dog is trying to get a piece of this. She was just 5 when we moved here, so we knew we wanted to homeschool, but didn't, we're kind of looking for the best place to do that. Every state has different regulations, and whether you have to take state testing or whether you have to report a whole curriculum, or, there's just different regulations in each state. And so New Mexico was one of a few states that we were really happy about their homeschool policies. And, we had the freedoms to teach the different subjects and the curriculum we wanted here. So that was a part of it. But another big part of it is kind of natural health. So I'm very big on meditation and, kind of the law of attraction, and tapping into the resources that our earth and that nature provides to help us feel better, versus just all Western medicine, which can, in my experience, can also cause a lot of problems and not always fix the root, the root cause. So I've done acupuncture over the years, and the place we moved to is just kind of this little healing mecca. There's a lot of natural health practitioners. There's a lot of just natural resources like hot springs, mineral hot springs that have over 30 natural minerals that are just fabulous, from everything from muscle spasms to psoriasis. And so this was just a place that, what's that?
Can you get in and out of those independently, the hot springs?
Yeah. And so I bet you there's 8 or 10 local businesses that have the hot springs downtown in our kind of little, art district of our tiny little town. And one of them is a big resort and has pool lifts and all kinds of things, right on the Rio Grande. And then there's also little kind of hole in the wall places that also have hot spring water that, it's pretty much a big stone bathtub that you might be a little bit more difficult to climb in and out of, but it's very private and you can have all the time in the world. So there's a lot of different options, but there's plenty of accessible. Yeah.
That's so cool. I remember earlier you said that was sort of your shift when you were trying to get pregnant, right? So you moved more into sort of some holistic stuff. So how did that change for you, or what was that like? How did you feel different? Why do you think it worked?
Yeah, I just think, like I said, that Western medicine often treats symptoms that could be a whole nother issue going on in your body that's not even related to the symptom you're having. And so we kind of Band-Aid stuff in Western medicine, and
you probably know that more than most people in wheelchairs. Because like we were saying earlier, if your leg is broken and you get a migraine and you just keep taking Excedrin and migraine, that's not going to heal your broken leg.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And just with us, I think it's because there are so many unknowns. Prescription medication is a really easy Band-Aid, because it will often help the symptom, whatever it is, enough to make it manageable, but never, and then oftentimes cause other issues by taking those, medications. So I guess by the time I was, in my early 20s, I'd been on antibiotics almost every day of my life for most of my life to prevent infections, which didn't work. I still got UTIs and things all the time.
Right, because your body gets used to stuff like that.
Yeah, and medicine for pain, and medicine for spasms, and medicine eventually for nausea, because I was so nauseous every day from all the medicine. And so it just got to this like boiling point where I was like, there's got to be another way. And so I sought out other professionals and got a naturopath, got an acupuncturist, got a personal trainer that, I love so many of the physical therapists I've had in my life. And in fact, they've changed my life. But there's also something to seeing somebody that doesn't know about disability because they don't have any limitations. So my personal trainer would just push me until she saw that I couldn't really do it anymore. And then we'd work there for a while. And for the first time in my life with her, I built stomach muscles by engaging things that I could feel right above that. And that was just never I don't remember that being a goal in any sort of like hospital setting, because they were working my arms or stretching my legs or doing the things that you do to somebody that's a paraplegic. And she wanted to like figure out the in between and like how far I could work, Cool. And it was incredible. I saw so many results. And so when these things started working, and now today, 10 years later, I don't take medication, and, I don't take antibiotics unless I get in a really bad spot and have to take them for a few days, I don't take anything for pain or for spasms or anything like that. And so there is another way out there. And then just even, I think people don't give enough credit or weight to our emotional well-being and how that affects our body. And just having a disability can be stressful, and it's for its own reasons. And so sometimes just our mental well-being can really cause issues, digestive issues, and so many of the things that we relate to having a spinal cord injury, but in reality, it might not have anything to do with that. It might have to do with the stress that we endure every day. So meditation and
from the outside, the stress. I feel like when I'm just by myself in my apartment, I'm not thinking about, oh, I'm in a wheelchair. But when I'm out in the world, I'm reminded of it time and time again, whether it's someone staring or a step or a bathroom I can't get into or whatever, right? So it's not like being in a wheelchair is stressful in and of itself. It's kind of like the effects, right?
Exactly. And even Western medicine is scary as crap. They make us feel very broken and very like, this is going to happen. And because you're in a wheelchair, you're going to get all the pressure sores, and you're going to get this, and you're going to get osteoporosis, and you're going to, and sometimes I have gone almost 37 years, 36 years with a spinal cord injury in a wheelchair, and I have zero osteoporosis. It does not just happen because you have an SCI. That is false. It is a false thing that people say. And so sometimes a year after an injury, somebody gets osteoporosis, and that's, we don't know why. And some people that happens, and some people it doesn't. But it's not an across the board. But when you get injured, your you know, all this stuff is thrown on you. Like, these are all the other ways you're going to be sick for the rest of your life and you can't do anything about it. And that is like a lot to carry, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing in medicine where there's not enough doctors who are specialists in this. And then it's not taught to doctors who aren't specialists at all. So they're just guessing half the time. I mean, and I feel like sometimes, as someone who's been also, you know, in a wheelchair, paralyzed with a spinal cord injury for 30 years plus, so I feel like sometimes I know more than certain doctors. I'm not trying to sound like who, you know, I am, but sometimes I'm like, how could you not know that? Were you absent that day? I mean, when they have to learn about this at some point, no?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Like, we are the specialist in our, you know,
we have to be patient advocates. This is something I tell everybody, friends of mine, wheelchair or not. You know, something I don't think people understand is you are your doctor's boss. Your doctor works for you. And if they're not telling you, listening to you, or, you know, answering you the right way, you have every right to say, I want to see a different doctor, or, you know, I don't trust you. You can do that. It's like if you went to a mechanic and they didn't fix your car right, would you keep going to that mechanic? No, but for some reason we put doctors on this pedestal. And some, by the way, some of them are literally have saved my life.
Absolutely.
And some of them literally have almost killed me.
Yep. But even the best ones in the world can have a bad day and make a mistake. And so it's totally okay and needed, and to, you know, ask questions and to be your own best advocate.
Yeah.
I think, like, you know, just one more thing about like the natural medicine is how we're made to feel, how we were just talking from Western medicine, that we're broken and we're destined to have all these related illnesses and conditions and all these things, you know, that will be a burden. That's Eastern medicine and other types of like holistic naturopathic medicine looks at like the human body as like as a perfect thing, that if it has stuff wrong with it, you know, you try to remove those things, but they look at a person as well, as being well at their core, when Western medicine looks at a sick person, you know. So it's like that, it's such a different way of addressing, you know, a condition or any sort of ailment, as like the body is capable of healing and the body is like naturally capable of like fixing things. So let's support it and let it do that, instead of going, okay, that's wrong, here's all the other things that are going to go wrong too, you know.
Interesting. I love that. And you've had, I mentioned earlier that you're a life coach. You've had so many jobs. You were like a radio DJ. You mentioned before you were a car saleswoman, right? So now what are you kind of focusing on? The life coaching, you're a teacher of a kid.
I do homeschool. So I homeschool my kid, and she's, you know, second-ish grade now. You don't have to be too specific in homeschool, but, you know, around there. But I do, you know, life coaching. I do a lot of writing, freelance writing, from, you know, blogs for people to website copy and other things like that. And then the last couple of years, I've been getting a lot more into art. So I paint and make jewelry, and actually a store is opening up in my little town next month that all my work will be available in that store in town. So I've been spending a lot of time being creative and kind of exploring that part of myself, and because that's pretty healing too. Yeah,
that's cool. That's something that I've always loved about you, is you're just sort of ever changing. Like, you go with the flow. You're like, you're not like, I failed as a radio DJ. You're like, I did that and now I'm doing something else, and that's okay. It's not, you didn't fail, you did it, you succeeded, and now you're doing something else, right? It's like, sometimes people, I think, lock themselves into these labels or whatever, and that can really stress a person out.
Totally. That's funny that you say that, because I guess I don't realize it as much about myself, but Cameron, my daughter, has always had like 6 or 7 things she wants to be when she grows up. You know, there's one really, really important. She's always wanted to be a paleontologist, but then there's like a writer, a dancer, a chef, a cheerleader, you know, all these things. And I hear a lot of parents be like, well, you have to kind of hone in on one, or, you know, what do you want to go to college for, or what, you know. And I'm always telling her, like, do them all, girl. Like, do it. Like, do every single one of those. Like, life is too short. Like, try all the things. And So yeah, I guess I might lead by example.
Yeah, you definitely do. So where can people find you then if they want to buy some of your art or hire you as their life coach or whatever?
Yeah, so you can find my public page on Facebook, or Kristina Rhoades. It's with a K, Kristina, and my last name is Rhoades. So you can find me on social and Instagram and all the good stuff there. For kind of my more holistic, health pages and life coaching, Well with Kristina, again with a K. And then you can find art at K2 Creations. It stands for K squared because I do it with my kid, and she's Cameron with a K. So K2 Creations. Yeah.
I don't know who wouldn't want you as their life coach. I feel like you have got it figured out, and you're still figuring stuff out as you go along, which is all I think we can ask of a person, is to be open to keep learning and keep, sharing what you learn. Is there any sort of like final thing you would like, or just a piece of advice you've received, or just like your favorite piece of advice to give, or anything? Final thoughts? Wheelchair or not?
Yeah, I think just that we are the creators of our life. I'm not necessarily a religious person. I'm very spiritual, but people say that we are created out of God's image, and to me, what that means is that He, if that's what you believe in, He is the creator, and we are creators. So we are the creators of our life and our experience, and that doesn't mean that things always go right, because we have learning to do, or this would be a pretty boring experience. We have learning, and often that comes as something that looks like a challenge or a failure, or an obstacle in your life, but there's learning there. Or just even if it's not a major lesson, it's just learning more about ourselves and what we can handle and what we can move through, building character and who we are, and kind of when you're in a place that you don't like, it's like a platform to launch into something that you do want. So like all those contrasts, those contrasting experiences are necessary, but the way that we are the creators is that we choose what to look at next. We choose where to put our focus next. And to me, that's usually something to do with happiness. Like, I know I want to feel good. And life isn't always easy. And right now, things look pretty bleak, in a lot of areas of our life. But I'm going to put my focus on and put my attention on the sunset, or on my dog, or my kid laughing, or music that makes me feel good, so it's as difficult as it is, and as challenging as life can sometimes be. We're the creators of this experience, and what we're focusing on is what we feel. So,
oh girl, I needed to hear that today. I needed to hear that. That's so true. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that we got to do this and talk sort of formally, because we're always talking informally, and that's fun too. And I just thank you so much for your wisdom. I'm so happy that the universe put us together when it did, and that we were smart enough to keep in touch all this time.
Me too. And I just want to say too that I'm so proud of you. And you are one of the most, to me, like the people that will go for their dreams. I'm just very inspired. We met, like we said, 12, 13 years ago, and you told me about this dream that you had, and you were still living in New Jersey, and you are one of the few people that I have known in my life that like went after that dream, like what, and got it, and are doing more amazingly than I could have ever imagined. So I'm so proud of you. You're kicking butt. You're making stages accessible. And then this is so cool, what you're going to be sharing with people through Rollin With My Homies, and just proud of you, Krista.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, we'll hopefully, once, Corona times have slowed down, I can come stay with you, because I need to get into those hot springs like ASAP.
Girl, do it.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Check out Kristina on all the socials. This is Rollin With My Homies. I'm Santina Muha. This is Luciano.
What? Bye, bud.
So funny. Bye. Mwah.
Bye, guys.